You know, in all my years working with people over 50, I've found that there are a few moments in life that truly shake us to our core. And one of those moments is a heart attack. Not the kind you read about in medical journals, not the statistics you see on television, but the one that happens suddenly, in real time, when you're sitting at your kitchen table. Or maybe lying in bed late at night, and you feel that crushing pain in your chest. It is one of the most frightening emergencies a human being can go through. Now, I want you to imagine this for just a second. Imagine you're at home, alone. No one else is in the house. Maybe your spouse is out running errands, maybe your kids live in another state. It's just you, the quiet of your living room, and the need of no way you feel it, the pressure, the heaviness, like someone is sitting right on your chest. You try to take a deep breath, but it doesn't feel right. Your arm tingles. Maybe there's a sudden wave of nausea. And in that moment, your mind races. What's happening to me? I've sat across from countless patients who've described this exact scenario. Some lived to tell me about it because they got help in time. Others weren't so lucky. And here's the haunting truth. When a heart attack strikes and you're all alone, those first few seconds can make the difference between life and death. You don't have the luxury of waiting for someone else to call 911 for you. You don't have the reassurance of a loved one rushing to your side. It's just you, your body, and the clock ticking down. That's what makes it so terrifying. Most deaths from heart attacks happen in the very first minutes. The heart, that beautiful muscle pumping life through your body, suddenly stops working the way it should. Blood stops flowing properly. And the brain, our most precious organ, can survive long without that steady stream of oxygen. Within moments, you can lose consciousness. And if no one is there to notice, no one to shake you awake, the outcome can be tragic. I don't say this to frighten you, I say it because it's reality. And as someone who has spent 30 years walking with people through their health journeys, I believe in facing reality head-on, not turning away from it. I've seen too many families devastated because no one ever talked about what to do in that crucial window of time. So let me ask you, have you ever thought about it? Have you ever imagined what you would do if you were completely alone and your heart suddenly betrayed you? Most people haven't. We think about insurance policies, we plan for retirement, we even write wills. But we rarely plan for those sudden, invisible moments when everything can change in the span of a breath. I remember one gentleman, a 67-year-old retired teacher, who came to see me after surviving a heart attack at home. He told me, "Liam, I thought I was going to die. I was in my recliner, and all I could think was nobody knows what's happening to me right now." That loneliness, that sheer vulnerability, stayed with him long after he left the hospital. He survived, but the experience changed him. And I think it should change us too, because none of us are guaranteed that someone will always be right there when we need them. And that's why we need to talk about it, honestly, openly, without fear. Because there is something you can do. There is a simple trick, a small action you can take in those critical seconds that might just keep you alive long enough to get the help you need. I'll share that with you in just a moment, but before we even go there, I want to stay here in this opening thought because it's the foundation. See, knowledge is power. Awareness is power. Just recognizing the possibility, just daring to picture yourself in that moment, is already the beginning of survival. Because when the unexpected happens, the mind often freezes. Panic sets in, and panic is deadly. But if you've thought about it before, if you've prepared yourself mentally, you can meet that moment with something else, with clarity, with action. So let me bring this closer to home. If you're watching this, chances are you're over 50. Maybe you're 60, maybe 70. Maybe you've already had a scare, or maybe your doctor has warned you about high blood pressure, high cholesterol, or diabetes. These are not just numbers on a chart, they are signs that your heart is carrying a heavier load than it should. And when you carry that burden for years, it makes the heart more vulnerable. That's why this conversation matters so deeply, especially for you. I don't want you to think of a heart attack as something that only happens to other people. No, it's something that can happen to any of us, at any time. And if it happens when you're surrounded by loved ones, wonderful, someone can call for help. But if it happens when you're alone, the only person who can save you is you. Let me pause here and ask, have you ever been alone and felt a flutter in your chest? A skipped heartbeat, maybe a sudden pressure that made you wonder, even for just a second, is this it? If you felt that, then you know how real this is. And that brings us back to the heart of today's message. A heart attack alone is the nightmare scenario. But it doesn't have to be the end of the story. There is something you can do in those first 10 seconds that could very well save your life. We'll talk about that trick, that lifeline, in just a moment. For now, I want you to hold on to one truth. Awareness is survival. You're not powerless. Even in the scariest, loneliest moments, you have tools. And just by being here, watching this, you've already taken the first step toward protecting yourself. When people ask me, Liam, what makes a heart attack so deadly? I often pause, because the answer isn't just about the heart itself, it's about time. Time is the most brutal enemy when a heart attack strikes. Most of the people who die from a heart attack don't pass away hours later in a hospital bed. No, they pass away within minutesimal times, within just a handful of heartbeats. And when you're all alone, those minutes vanish even faster. Let me paint a picture for you. Imagine it's late evening. You're sitting in your armchair, maybe watching the news or flipping through a book. Suddenly, there's that unmistakable heaviness in your chest. At first, you wonder if it's indigestion, maybe something you ate for dinner. But the pressure doesn't fade, it grows. It feels like someone is tightening a band around your chest. You want to cry out for help, but no one's there. And in that silence, you realize it's just you. Just you and the pain. Now, why is this so dangerous? Because without immediate help, your heart muscle begins to die. A heart attack happens when blood flow to the heart is blocked, and the heart, like any other muscle, can only survive so long without oxygen. Every second that passes is damage. Every second is another piece of heart tissue dying. And while that's happening, your brain, your most vital organ, is at risk too. Without enough blood pumping upward, your brain can lose consciousness in minutes. I've seen this too many times in my career. I remember a patient, a woman in her early 60s, who lived alone after her husband passed. She suffered a massive heart attack one evening. The neighbors later said they heard nothing, no cry, no noise, because she never made it to the phone. By the time someone found her, it was too late. That story stays with me because it highlights the terrible truth. When you're alone, you don't have those precious extra minutes that come from someone else calling 911 for you. You see, in a heart attack, speed is everything. Doctors often say, time is muscle. The faster you restore blood flow, the more heart muscle you save. That's why we rush people into catheter labs, why ambulances have defibrillators ready. But when you're alone, before that ambulance ever gets to you, the only clock that matters is the one inside your chest. And if you lose consciousness before you can dial your phone, your chances drop dramatically. Think about it this way. If you faint in a crowded restaurant, someone is going to shout, someone is going to call 911, maybe even perform CPR until the paramedics arrive. But if you faint in your bedroom, with no one around to see you, there's no safety net, no backup. That's why the danger multiplies when you're alone. And here's the piece that most people don't realize. Most heart attack deaths occur not because help didn't exist, but because help didn't arrive soon enough. The window between life and death can be shockingly small. 2 minutes, 3 minutes, that's all it takes for a life to slip away. And that's why knowing even one small survival trick, something to keep your body going for just a little longer, could mean everything. Let me give you a comparison. Have you ever seen someone choke in a restaurant? If another diner knows the Heimlich maneuver, that immediate action can save a life before the ambulance ever arrives. The same principle applies here. If you're alone and your heart falters, you need a way to buy yourself a few extra moments, a way to keep your blood moving, your brain awake, until professional help can step in. Now, I want you to think about your own life. How much time do you spend alone? For many of us over 50, the house gets quieter. Children are grown, maybe a spouse has passed, or maybe you simply live independently. And while independence is beautiful, it also means that when emergencies strike, you are your own first responder. Have you ever considered that? You are the first line of defense for your own survival. It's not easy to hear, I know. None of us like to picture ourselves in that situation. But denial doesn't protect us, preparedness does. Pretending it won't happen doesn't stop it. But preparing, knowing what to do if it does happen, that gives you power. I often tell my patients, don't just focus on preventing a heart attack. Yes, eat well, exercise, take your medications. But also ask yourself, what if it happens tomorrow when I'm alone in my kitchen? What would I do in those first 10 seconds? Those 10 seconds could be everything. I recall another story, a man named George, 71 years old. He lived alone in a small apartment. One night, he felt that crushing pressure, the classic sign. But George had heard me speak at a seminar about preparing for emergencies. He stayed conscious just long enough to grab the phone, call 911, and unlock his door. The paramedics later told him, if you hadn't called when you did, we might have found you unconscious. He bought himself just enough time, and that time saved his life. That's the message I want to leave you with here. When you're alone, every second counts. A heart attack doesn't give you a polite warning. It doesn't wait for someone to walk through the door. It takes what it wants, when it wants. But you don't have to be helpless. There are tools, there are techniques, and there is knowledge that can help you survive until help arrives. So the next time you find yourself thinking, I'll be fine, I don't need to know these things, stop. Remind yourself that life doesn't always give us second chances. The people who survive are often the people who were ready. And that's why, in the next part of this video, I'm going to share with you a simple, powerful 10-second trick, something you can do if you're ever caught in this nightmare situation, completely alone. It's not a replacement for medical care, but it might just give you those precious extra moments. Because in the fight against a heart attack, those moments are everything. You know, one of the hardest things about heart attacks is that they rarely announce themselves with a flashing red sign that says, this is it, you're having a heart attack. No, they whisper, they hint, they disguise themselves as something ordinary. And that's why so many people miss the early warnings. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever felt a strange pressure in your chest, maybe after dinner, and thought, it's probably just indigestion? Or maybe you've had a moment where your left arm felt heavy or numb and you brushed it off as sleeping in the wrong position. I can't tell you how many patients have told me these same stories, moments they ignored, moments that almost cost them their lives. The truth is, a heart attack often begins quietly, with signs that are easy to dismiss. But knowing those signs, recognizing them when they appear, can literally save your life. Let's talk about them. The first and most common sign is chest discomfort. It's not always the dramatic Hollywood version of clutching your chest and falling to the ground. Often, it's subtler. It feels like a heaviness, a squeezing, a pressure that sits in the center of your chest. Some people describe it as if an elephant is standing on them. Others say it feels like severe heartburn. And here's the key. It doesn't go away after a few minutes. It lingers. Sometimes it comes in waves, easing for a moment, then returning stronger. But chest pain isn't the only warning. The body has its own way of signaling that something is very wrong. Pain can spread beyond the chest into your left arm, your back, your neck, your jaw. I had a patient once, a 59-year-old woman, who told me her first symptom wasn't chest pain at all. It was jaw pain. She thought she had a dental issue. But within an hour, she collapsed from a full-blown heart attack. Thankfully, she survived only because she acted quickly once she realized something wasn't right. Shortness of breath is another red flag. Sometimes it happens with chest pain, but sometimes it comes on its own. Picture this. You're walking across the room, something you do every day without thinking, but suddenly you're out of breath, gasping as if you just climbed a flight of stairs. That sudden change in your body telling you it can't get enough oxygen is not something to ignore. Then there's dizziness or even fainting. When your heart can't pump blood effectively, your brain feels the shortage first. I've had patients describe it as a lightheadedness that washes over them out of nowhere. One man told me it felt like the room was spinning, and he had to grab onto the counter just to stay upright. He thought he was dehydrated. In reality, he was moments away from a heart attack. And let's not forget the cold sweats. I'm not talking about breaking a sweat after exercise. I mean sitting still, doing nothing, and suddenly your skin turns clammy, your forehead damp, your body chilled as if you're in a cold room. That's your nervous system panicking, signaling distress. Nausea and vomiting can also be signs. People often confuse them with a stomach bug or food poisoning. But when nausea comes hand in hand with chest discomfort or shortness of breath, it's time to pay attention. Now, here's the most important part of everything I've just told you. If you notice these symptoms, don't wait. Don't convince yourself that it's nothing. Don't sit there hoping it will pass, because every minute you delay, the damage to your heart grows. I think about a patient named Robert. He was 62, a proud grandfather, strong and independent. One afternoon, while mowing his lawn, he felt chest tightness. He stopped, sat down, and told himself it was just the heat. He went inside, drank some water, and waited. An hour later, he was in the emergency room with a massive heart attack. He survived, but the delay caused permanent damage to his heart muscle. He told me later, if I had just called right away, maybe my heart wouldn't be this weak now. This is why I'm so passionate about teaching these warning signs. Because too many people ignore them. Too many people wait. And too often, waiting is the difference between life and death. I know it's easy to rationalize. We don't want to overreact. We don't want to seem dramatic. Many of my patients, especially men, tell me, I didn't want to make a fuss, but let me tell you something. Your life is worth fussing over. If you're wrong and it turns out to be indigestion, fine. No harm done. But if you're right and it is a heart addict, getting help quickly could save your heart, your independence, even your life. Science backs this up. Studies show that people who reach the hospital quickly within the first hour of symptoms show far better survival rates and less long-term damage. Doctors can open blocked arteries, restore blood flow, and prevent the worst outcomes. But that only happens if you act, if you recognize the signs and respond. So let me ask you, honestly, do you know your own body well enough to notice when something feels different, when something feels wrong? And if you did notice, would you act? Would you call for help, even if you weren't sure? That's the challenge I leave with you today. Pay attention. Learn the warning signs. Chest pressure, pain spreading beyond the chest, shortness of breath, dizziness, cold sweats, nausea. They're not just random inconveniences. They're your body waving a red flag. I want you to think of your body as a trusted friend. When it whispers to you with these symptoms, listen. Don't ignore it. Don't shush it, because a trusted friend is trying to save your life. And here's the beautiful truth. Catching these signs early, acting immediately, can mean the difference between a full recovery and a life forever changed by heart damage. Or worse. So promise me this, the next time you feel something unusual, something that makes you pause and wait, don't try to tough it out. Don't hope it goes away. Call for help. Because those moments of hesitation could cost you everything. Your heart has carried you through every joy, every sorrow, every memory of your life. Isn't it worth protecting with everything you have? Now, let's talk about something that might surprise you. You've probably never heard it from your doctor during a routine checkup. It's not something you'll see in a glossy pamphlet at the clinic. But in certain desperate moments, it could mean the difference between staying conscious long enough to get help or collapsing before anyone knows what's happening. It's often called the 10-second trick. Medical folks sometimes refer to it as cough CPR. Now, before I explain it, let me be clear. This is not a cure. It's not something you rely on instead of calling 911 or going to the hospital. But if you ever find yourself completely alone, feeling your heart go into chaos, fluttering, pounding, or suddenly threatening to stop, this little action may give you just enough time to survive until help arrives. So what is it? Imagine your heart is stumbling, its rhythm suddenly irregular, blood not pumping the way it should. In those moments, you might feel faint, dizzy, seconds from blacking out. Cough CPR is a way of forcing your body to keep going, at least for a short while. It works like this. You take a deep breath, filling your lungs with oxygen. Then, you cough hard, deep, forceful, as if you're trying to clear your chest from the inside. And you repeat it. 1 breath in, one strong cough out. Every 2 seconds. Over and over. Strange, right? But here's why people talk about it. The deep breath brings oxygen into your lungs. The act of coughing compresses your chest, pushing blood through the heart and brain, almost like a mini version of CPR you're doing on yourself. The combination of oxygen and chest compression can sometimes keep you conscious for a little longer, until either your heart rhythm steadies itself or until help arrives. I remember a patient named Linda, 65 years old, who had lived with an irregular heartbeat for years. She once told me, "Liam, the scariest moment of my life was when I was alone in the grocery store parking lot. My heart suddenly raced and I thought I was going to collapse." She had read about cough CPR and tried it. Deep breath, strong cough, again and again. It didn't cure her arrhythmia, but it kept her awake long enough to dial 911. By the time paramedics arrived, she was still conscious. That small act whose forceful cough may have bought her the minutes she needed. Now, you might be wondering, is this officially recommended by every cardiologist? The truth is, not exactly. There's debate in the medical community about how effective cough CPR is outside of a hospital. In a clinical setting, with doctors monitoring you, the technique is sometimes used for certain heart rhythm problems. At home, alone, it's less certain. But here's the thing, if you're seconds away from fainting, with no one around, doing nothing is almost guaranteed to lead to unconsciousness. Doing something, even something simple like this, may give you a fighting chance. Think about it this way. If your car suddenly stalled in the middle of the road, you wouldn't just sit there, hands off the wheel, hoping it magically fixed itself. You'd try something, grist the engine, pump the gas, anything to keep moving until help arrived. Your body is no different. When your heart stalls, when it sputters, you have to try to keep it going. And a deep breath plus a strong cough is one way to do that. But let me stress this again, because it matters. This is a last resort. It is not a replacement for emergency care. If you ever feel the signs of a heart attack or your heart rhythm suddenly goes haywire, your first move must always be to call emergency services. Get help on the way. Take your prescribed medication if you have it. Sit down, unlock your door. Those steps save lives. The cough trick is simply something you can add in the precious seconds while you're waiting. I often tell my patients, don't dismiss simple things. The human body is incredibly responsive to small actions. A steady breath, a strong cough. It may sound too easy to matter, but sometimes the simplest tools are the ones that make the biggest difference. So let me ask you, can you picture yourself doing this? Can you imagine taking control in that terrifying moment instead of giving in to panic? Because that's really the heart of this idea. It's not just about the cough. It's about reminding yourself that you have power, even in the scariest moments. I think of another story. Frank, 70 years old, widowed, living alone. He had always feared the thought of a heart attack. One night, he felt his heart flutter, his chest tightening, and he thought, this is it. He remembered hearing about cough CPR, and he tried it. Inhale, cough, inhale, cough. With trembling hands, he managed to call 911. By the time paramedics arrived, he was pale but awake. Later, he told me, I don't know if it was the cough or just luck, but I think it saved me. That's why I share this with Yunit as a guarantee, not as medical gospel, but as a potential lifeline. If you're alone, if you feel your heart slipping, if seconds are all you have, then use those seconds. Fill your lungs. Cough deeply. Keep going until help comes. And if you're sitting there thinking, well, I hope I never need that, I agree with you. I hope you never do. But hope is not the same as preparation. The people who survive are often the ones who were ready, the ones who had rehearsed in their minds what they would do. So here's my encouragement. File this away in your memory. Share it with someone you love. You may never use it, but if you do, if life ever puts you in that lonely, frightening moment, this little trick might just give you 10 more seconds, 10 more breaths, 10 more chances to stay alive. Because sometimes, in the fight for life, 10 seconds is everything. Now that we've introduced this little-known 10-second trick, let's slow down and really walk through how to do it. Because in a moment of panic, your mind won't be calm enough to figure things out. You need the steps to be simple, memorable, and almost automatic. Think of this as a kind of emergency drill you rehearse in your mind. Just like we practice fire drills or buckling a seatbelt without thinking, you should be able to picture yourself doing this if your heart suddenly betrays you. So let's break it down. There are 3 essential steps. Breathe in deeply, cough forcefully, and repeat the cycle every 2 seconds. First, the deep breath. When you inhale fully, you're filling your lungs with oxygen. Why does that matter? Because oxygen is your fuel. When your heart is struggling, when blood flow is interrupted, your body's oxygen supply becomes limited. By taking that big breath, you're storing up what your body desperately needs. Picture yourself standing at the edge of a swimming pool, about to dive underwater. What do you do instinctively? You take the deepest breath you can, because you know you'll need it. A heart attack is like that dive. Your body is plunging into danger, and that deep breath is your reserve tank. Second, the cough. Not a polite little throat-clearing cough, not a light cough like you do to cover up a sneeze. I mean a deep, strong, forceful cough, kind that shakes your chest, that feels like it comes from the very bottom of your lungs. Imagine you're trying to push something heavy out of your body. That's the effort you need. When you cough this way, 2 important things happen. The pressure inside your chest rises, which actually squeezes your heart like a pump. At the same time, that pressure pushes blood out of your chest and up toward your brain. And remember, it's the brain that we're trying to protect, because once you lose consciousness, you lose the chance to call for help. Third, repeat. The rhythm is what matters here. 1 deep breath, 1 strong cough, every 2 seconds. Like a drum beat. Inhale, cough, inhale, cough. Keep it steady, don't stop. If you stop, your body may stop with you. I sometimes tell my patients, think of it like keeping the beat in a song. If you've ever tapped your foot to the rhythm of your favorite tune, you already know how to find a steady pace. Here, your song is just 2 notes long. Breathe and cough, breathe and cough. Every 2 seconds, over and over, until help arrives or your heart settles. Now, let me bring in a story. A man named Howard, 73 years old, told me he once felt his heart racing irregularly while alone in his garage. He remembered hearing about this technique from a health seminar. He said, "I felt like I was about to pass out. I just started breathing in, coughing hard, over and over. I don't know if it was perfect, but I stayed awake until the ambulance came." His words stayed with me because they highlight something crucial. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be strong and consistent. So let's imagine the scenario together. You're home alone. Suddenly, that crushing chest pressure starts. You feel dizzy. Your arm goes numb. Your instinct might be to panic, but instead, you tell yourself, breathe deep, cough hard, keep the rhythm. You inhale fully, cough as though your life depends on it, because it does. 2 seconds later, again, inhale, cough. You keep it going. Meanwhile, with whatever strength you have, you grab your phone, dial 911, leave the line open. Maybe you even unlock your door between coughs. But the coughing itself, that's what keeps you conscious, keeps blood moving, buys you the time. Some people ask me, "Liam, how hard should I cough?" And I tell them, imagine trying to blow up a balloon that's too stiff, one of those rubber balloons that refuses to stretch. You have to push from deep in your chest, really force it. That's the effort you need. Others ask, how long can I keep it up? The answer is, as long as you have to. Ideally until paramedics arrive or until your heartbeat steadies. It may feel exhausting. Your chest may hurt. But in that moment, pain and effort are far better than the silence of unconsciousness. Let's pause for a second. If this feels overwhelming, don't worry. The steps are simple. Deep breath, forceful cough, repeat. That's all you need to remember. You don't need to count exact seconds. You don't need to worry about getting the technique perfect. You just need to act. I want you to picture it right now, as if we were practicing together. Ready? Inhale deeply, hold that oxygen, now cough hard, pushing everything out from your chest. Good. Again, then cough. That rhythm, that pattern, is what may keep your blood flowing in those critical moments. I've been in medicine long enough to know that survival often depends not on complicated techniques, but on simple, memorable actions people can actually use in real life. This is one of them. Of course, remember, this doesn't replace calling for help. The cough is the bridge that carries you from the moment your heart begins to fail to the moment professionals can step in. Think of it as a rope across a rushing river. It won't get you to the other side by itself, but it may hold you up long enough for someone to pull you across. So here's my challenge to you. Don't just listen, practice it in your mind. Next time you're alone and feel your heart flutter or your chest tighten, don't freeze. Breathe, cough, repeat. It might feel strange to think about, but rehearsing it now could make all the difference later. And remember, your body is stronger than you think. Even in the face of fear, even when your heart stumbles, you have tools. You are not helpless. The power of a single breath and a strong cough, repeated with determination, may be the very thing that saves your life. By now you might be wondering, Liam, why would something as simple as breathing and coughing possibly make a difference during something as serious as a heart attack? It sounds almost too simple, doesn't it? A deep breath and a cough, could those really buy you more time when your life is on the line? Let's talk about it. Not in a heavy, textbook way. I want to explain it to you the way I would if we were sitting together at my office, maybe with a cup of tea in hand, talking through your fears. Because the truth is, this little technique has a logic behind it. Think about your body for a moment. The heart is a pump. It pushes blood, carrying oxygen to every part of you. When that pump fails, the oxygen highway shuts down. Suddenly your brain, your muscles, even your very breath, don't get what they need. And the brain, especially, is fragile. It only lasts a few minutes without oxygen before it begins to shut down. That's why people collapse so quickly during cardiac arrest. So where does the deep breath come in? Oxygen is the fuel. When you fill your lungs with a big, deliberate breath, you're stocking up on that fuel. You're giving your body an extra reserve to pull from in those critical seconds. Imagine filling a water bottle before you head into the desert. You know you'll need every drop. That deep breath is your water bottle. Now let's talk about the cough. This is where the trick gets fascinating. When you cough deeply, really cough from the bottom of your chest, you're doing more than clearing your throat. You're creating pressure inside your chest cavity. Think of it like squeezing a balloon. That sudden pressure forces your heart to contract, pushes blood out, and sends it upward toward the brain. It's like giving your heart a manual push, just enough to keep the circulation going. One of my colleagues once described it perfectly. He said, "A strong cough is like doing a mini CPR on yourself." And that's exactly it. The cough acts like a chest compression. It's not as powerful as someone else doing CPR for you, of course, but in that lonely moment, it might be just enough to prevent your brain from shutting down completely. I had a patient, Mary, who told me she tried this once during a terrifying episode. She felt her chest tighten, her pulse race, her vision blur. She remembered an article she had read about cough CPR. She told me, "I thought it sounded silly, but I did it anyway. Deep breath, cough, deep breath, cough, and suddenly I felt a little clearer, just long enough to grab my phone. When the paramedics arrived, she was still conscious." The technique didn't fix her heart attack, but it bought her those precious 30 seconds she needed to call for help. And 30 seconds, in that situation, is everything. Now, let me be clear. This isn't magic. It's not going to cure a blocked artery or stop a heart attack in its tracks. What it does is delay the collapse. It's like putting a stick under a collapsing roof. It doesn't rebuild the house, but it might hold it up just long enough for help to arrive. Here's a simple way to picture it. Imagine your heart is a car engine, and suddenly it stalls. The cough is like giving the engine a quick push while you try to restart it. It won't fix the problem, but it might keep the wheels turning a little longer so you don't come to a dead stop in the middle of traffic. And that's why doctors sometimes use this technique in hospitals under supervision, especially when a patient goes into a certain kind of irregular heartbeat. Outside the hospital, it's debates. Some say it may not always work, others say it can be risky. But here's what I remind my patients. If you're alone, fainting, and seconds from losing consciousness, what do you have to lose? Sitting still does nothing. Trying to breathe and cough gives you at least a chance. Let me ask you this. Would you rather do nothing and hope, or take action even if it just buys you an extra half a minute? Because in that half a minute, you could dial 911. You could unlock your door for paramedics. You could swallow the nitroglycerin your doctor prescribed. You could call out for a neighbor. Seconds matter. I think back to a man named Charles, 71 years old, who lived alone. He had a history of heart disease. One night he felt the crushing pressure. He said later, "I felt myself fading. I started coughing because it was all I could think to do. And at work he stayed awake long enough to call my daughter. She rushed over, and then the ambulance came. Charles didn't escape the heart attack, but he escaped death. And that's what matters. Here's what the science tells us, put simply. Deep breathing loads your body with oxygen. Forceful coughing squeezes the chest, which helps push blood toward your brain. The cycle of breathing and coughing can sometimes stabilize your rhythm long enough to prevent immediate blackout. Does it always work? No. Can it make the difference in some cases? Yes. And when you're alone, you take every chance you can get. But let me also add this. Beyond the physiology, there's something powerful about action itself. When you feel helpless, when panic takes over, doing something anything is your mind focus. It shifts you from fear into survival mode. And that shift can keep you calm enough to do the next right thing, like calling for help. Sometimes the biggest benefit of this technique is not only physical but also psychological. So, the usefulness of this method is twofold. It gives your body oxygen and circulation, and it gives your mind a lifeline of focus in a storm of fear. Both can save you. Let me end this part with a gentle reminder. This is not a substitute for professional care. If you feel chest pain, if you feel faint, your goal is not to cough your way back to normal. Your goal is to stay alive long enough for help to reach you. Think of cough CPR as the bridge, not the destination. And if you're watching this, I want you to tuck this knowledge into your memory, not with fear, but with confidence. Because sometimes survival doesn't come from grand, dramatic actions. It comes from simple, steady breaths, from the power of a cough, from the courage to keep going, even when everything inside you wants to quit. That's why this little trick matters. Because in those desperate seconds, when your heart stumbles and the world starts to dim, a single breath and a strong cough could be enough to keep the light on until help arrives. So far, we've talked about this unusual cough CPR technique, this last resort action you can take when you're alone and feel your heart failing. But I need to remind you of something very important. Coughing alone is not enough. It might buy you a few precious seconds, maybe even a minute. But survival doesn't come from coughing, it comes from getting real medical help as quickly as possible. That means the very first thing you must do, even before you start coughing, is this. Call emergency services. Dial 911. I cannot emphasize this enough. Imagine this with me. You're sitting at home, you feel that crushing chest pain. You think, maybe it's just indigestion, maybe it will pass, and so you wait. Minutes go by, the pain gets worse, your breathing becomes shallow. By the time you finally reach for the phone, you're too weak to dial. Those wasted minutes can be fatal. I've seen it happen. A patient of mine, Robert, 64 years old, felt chest pain one night after dinner. He told his wife, "Let's wait a bit, maybe it's nothing." They waited 45 minutes. By the time they called 911, his heart had already suffered severe damage. He survived, but his life was never the same. He lived with heart failure afterward, constantly tired, unable to do the simple things he once loved, all because of that delay. So please don't wait. Don't hesitate. Don't worry about being embarrassed if it turns out to be a false alarm. Let the doctors be the ones to tell you it's indigestion. Your job is to act. Now, once you've called 911, there are other steps you can take while waiting for help. One of them is taking prescribed medication, like nitroglycerin, if your doctor has given it to you. Many people with heart conditions carry nitroglycerin tablets or spray. It's designed to relax and widen your blood vessels, easing the workload on your heart. If you've been prescribed it, use it exactly as directed. Don't wait for the pain to get worse. If the symptoms are there, take it. I once had a patient, Maria, who carried her nitroglycerin faithfully. She told me, "I never leave the house without it, Liam. It's in my purse, always." One afternoon, while gardening, she felt the warning signs: shortness of breath, chest tightness. She sat down, took her nitroglycerin, and immediately called 911. By the time the ambulance arrived, she was stable, alert, and alive. That little pill, taken at the right time, gave her the chance to survive. Next, let's talk about positioning yourself. If you feel faint, don't try to keep moving. Sit down immediately. Why? Because if you lose consciousness, you don't want to fall and injure yourself further. A fall can cause head trauma, broken bones, or internal bleeding complications that make an already dangerous situation even worse. Picture it: you're standing in your kitchen, chest aching, lightheaded, sweat dripping down your face. You tell yourself, "I'll just get to the bedroom." But before you make it, you collapse, hitting your head on the counter. Now, instead of just dealing with a heart attack, you're unconscious from head trauma as well. That's exactly what we want to avoid. Sitting down, even lying on the floor if you must, keeps you safe if you pass out. And here's another step many people forget: unlock your door. Open it, if you can. I know it sounds small, almost trivial, but think about it. If paramedics arrive and can't get inside, they lose valuable time breaking down your door or waiting for someone with a key. In a heart attack, every second counts. Unlocking your door may save you those seconds. I'll never forget a story a paramedic once shared with me. They arrived at a house where a man had called 911 but collapsed right after. The door was locked. They had to break it down. By the time they reached him, too much time had passed. The medic said, "If only he had unlocked that door first, maybe we could have saved him." That image has never left me. So let me recap this part, not with cold instructions, but with real urgency. Call 911 immediately. If you have prescribed heart medication, take it. Sit down to avoid injury if you faint. Unlock your door so rescuers can reach you quickly. Simple steps, right? Yet these are the steps that separate survival from tragedy. I want you to ask yourself right now, if something happened this very evening, would you know where your phone is? Is it within reach, or would you have to cross the room to find it? Do you keep your nitroglycerin nearby, or is it tucked away in a drawer? Is your front door easy for paramedics to access, or would they struggle to get inside? These may seem like small questions, but in an emergency, they're everything. Preparation is not about living in fear, it's about giving yourself the best chance to survive. I like to remind my patients, heart attacks are unpredictable, but your response doesn't have to be. You can prepare now, while you're calm, while you're healthy. Keep your phone nearby. Know where your medicine is. Make it a habit to keep doors unlocked if you're waiting for help. These habits turn panic into action when the time comes. And let's not forget the mental side. In those terrifying moments, panic is your enemy. The steps I've outlined, medicate, said, unlock, give you something to focus on. They replace fear with action. And action is what saves lives. So the next time you feel that crushing chest pain, don't sit frozen. Don't wait it out. Don't hope it passes. Act. Pick up the phone. Call for help. Take your medication. Sit down. And unlock your door. Do it for yourself. Do it for the people who love you. Because those simple steps, taken quickly, could be the reason you live to see another sunrise. Remember, cough CPR might keep you conscious for a moment. But it's these immediate actions, these practical, life-saving steps that bring the professionals to your side. And once they arrive, your chances of survival rise dramatically. So don't leave it to chance. Be ready. Act fast. Your life is worth it. Now, before we go any further, I want to pause and share something absolutely vital. Because the last thing I ever want is for someone to walk away from this video believing that cough CPR is a magic cure, or that it can replace professional medical care. So let's clear this up right now. Cough CPR is not an official treatment for a heart attack. Yes, it may help in certain desperate moments. Yes, it has a logic behind it. But the scientific community is divided on how effective it really is outside of a hospital. Some cardiologists say it can occasionally help maintain consciousness in the case of certain heart rhythm disturbances. Others warn that it may give people false confidence, leading them to delay calling for help. And delay, as we've already said, is deadly. So I want you to hold on to this truth. Cough CPR is not a cure. It is not a substitute for 911. It is not something you should rely on as your only plan. Think of it as a lifeboat, not the ship itself. It may keep you afloat for a short time, but you still need the rescue boat to arrive. I remember a patient of mine, Thomas, who had read about cough CPR online. One day he felt chest pain while working in his garage. Instead of calling 911 right away, he tried the coughing technique for almost 20 minutes, thinking it would fix the problem. By the time he finally collapsed and neighbors called for help, it was too late. His story breaks my heart because it illustrates exactly what I'm warning you about. This is not a replacement for emergency care. Medical experts have pointed this out again and again. In hospitals, cough CPR can sometimes be used under supervision for specific heart rhythm problems like certain arrhythmias. But outside the hospital, without monitoring equipment, without doctors guiding you, its effectiveness is uncertain. And yet, does that mean it's worthless? Not at all. If you are alone, if you feel your heart failing, if you are seconds from unconsciousness, then yes, trying it could help you stay awake long enough to call for help. It could buy you a little time. But I want you to see it for what it really is. A temporary measure in a desperate situation. Nothing more. Let me put it another way. Imagine you're driving and your car suddenly loses power. You might pump the brakes, steer to the shoulder, do whatever you can to keep control until you stop safely. That doesn't repair the car, it just prevents a crash. In the same way, cough CPR doesn't repair your heart. It simply buys you precious seconds. I want to emphasize this point because I know how we think, especially as we get older. Many of us like to be independent. We don't want to burden anyone. We don't want to overreact. And sometimes we cling to simple tricks because they make us feel like we're in control. But please don't let this be an excuse not to call for help. Don't think, I'll just cough through this and see if it passes. That mindset can be fatal. If you remember nothing else from this video, remember this. Your first action must always be to call emergency services. Everything else of coughing, the deep breathing, even taking medication is secondary. Survival comes from professional care. I once had a cardiologist friend tell me, Liam, I'd rather a patient call 911 for gas pain than stay home with a heart attack. And he's right. No doctor will ever fault you for being cautious. But if you ignore the signs, if you rely only on tricks, the outcome could be tragic. So where does that leave us? It leaves us with balance. On one hand, cough CPR may provide a short-term lifeline. On the other hand, we must never overestimate it. It's like carrying an umbrella in a storm. It may keep you dry for a little while, but it won't stop the rain. You still need shelter. I want you to ask yourself, if you ever felt that crushing chest pain, would you hesitate to call 911 because you thought coughing was enough? Would you gamble your life on something that isn't proven? I hope the answer is no. I hope you'll see cough CPR as what it truly is, a possible bridge, not the destination. And here's something else to remember. Every person's heart is different. Some people may respond to coughing, others may not. The science isn't conclusive, and that uncertainty is why doctors are cautious about recommending it widely. So please, don't rely on it as your plan A. Let your plan always be this: get professional help as fast as possible. At the same time, don't dismiss it entirely. Life doesn't always give us perfect circumstances. If you are alone, if your vision is fading, if your heart feels like it's giving out, then yes, take that deep breath, cough forcefully, keep going. But do it while calling 911. Do it while unlocking your door. Do it knowing that the real help is on its way. Because the truth is, medicine isn't just about perfect science. It's also about human survival. Sometimes, imperfect actions are better than no action at all. But let's always keep them in perspective. So, the bottom line, cough CPR is not an official cure. It's not a substitute for emergency care. It's a temporary, Last-ditch effort, something you can do if you're alone and seconds away from losing consciousness. Nothing more, nothing less. Hold that in your mind. Share it with the people you love. Use it if you must, but never let it replace the only real lifesaver, immediate medical care. You know, we've spent a lot of time in this video talking about what to do in the middle of a heart attack, about the cough trick, about calling 911, about staying alive in those desperate minutes. But let me share something I've learned in my 30 years as a doctor. The most powerful medicine isn't what you do in the emergency, it's what you do every single day before the emergency ever happens. There's an old saying, prevention is better than cure. And when it comes to heart disease, those words couldn't be truer. Because once a heart attack starts, you're fighting against the clock. But if you take care of your heart day after day, year after year, you can lower your chances of ever facing the terrifying moment in the first place. So let's talk about prevention not as a lecture, but as a conversation. Because these aren't abstract rules. These are real, daily choices that decide how strong your heart will be 5, 10, 20 years from now. Let's start with diet. The food you put on your plate is the foundation of your heart health. I've had patients who thought eating well was about following some complicated, expensive diet plan. But really, it's simple. Your heart thrives on foods that are close to the earth. Vegetables, fruits, whole grains, beans, nuts, lean proteins like fish or chicken. These foods nourish your arteries, keep your blood pressure in check, and help prevent cholesterol buildup. I remember one patient, a 70-year-old man named Jim. For years, he loved fried food, burgers, fries, lots of red meat. After a minor heart scare, he came to me terrified. We worked together to make small changes: more vegetables, less processed food, cutting back on salt. 6 months later, his cholesterol was down, his blood pressure improved, and he told me, "Liam, I feel 10 years younger." That's the power of food. It doesn't just fill your stomach, it heals or harms, depending on what you choose. Next is movement. Your heart is a muscle, and like any muscle, it gets stronger when you use it. That doesn't mean you need to run marathons or join a fancy gym. Walking 30 minutes a day, gardening, swimming, riding a bike, these are all wonderful for your heart. I know some of you may be thinking, but I'm too old. I've never been an exerciser. Let me tell you about a woman named Carol. She was 68 when she came to me, overweight, with high blood pressure and diabetes. She told me, "Liam, I can't run. I can barely climb stairs." We started with just 5 minutes of walking around her block. That was it. 5 minutes. Every week she added a little more. 2 years later, she was walking an hour every morning. She lost weight, her blood sugar stabilized, and she told me she felt more alive than she had in decades. The point isn't intensity, it's consistency. Move your body, however you can, and your heart will thank you. Now let's talk about something less visible but equally important. Stress. Stress is like a silent poison. When you live with constant worrying, anger, or anxiety, your body stays on high alert. Your blood pressure rises, your arteries tighten, your heart beats harder than it should. Over time, this wears your heart down. I often ask my patients, "What do you do to relax?" Too often, they just shake their heads. They don't. They push through, day after day. But here's the truth. Your heart needs rest, just as much as your body does. Prayer, meditation, deep breathing, listening to music, even sitting quietly with a cup of tea. These simple acts of calm lower stress hormones and protect your heart. I've seen patients transform their health not by adding more medication, but by learning to let go of stress. And then, of course, there are the habits we all know are harmful: smoking and excessive drinking. Smoking is one of the fastest ways to damage your arteries. Every cigarette narrows those vessels, steals oxygen, and raises your risk of heart disease. Quitting isn't easy. I've walked with patients through the struggle, but I've also seen the incredible results: lungs clearing, circulation improving, heart attacks avoided. If you smoke, quitting is the single best gift you can give your heart. Alcohol, too, plays its role. A glass of wine here and there may not be harmful, but heavy drinking weakens your heart muscle, raises blood pressure, and disrupts rhythms. Moderation is key. And for some, abstaining completely is the safest path. Finally, let's talk about something so many people neglect: regular checkups. You can't fix what you don't know is broken. High blood pressure, high cholesterol, and high blood sugar often have no symptoms, yet they silently damage your arteries year after year. By the time you feel the problem, it may already be too late. But if you check regularly, you can catch these issues early, make changes, and prevent a crisis. One of my patients once told me, "I don't like going to the doctor, Liam. I only go when something is wrong." But after suffering a heart attack, he realized the truth. Avoiding checkups doesn't protect you, it blinds you. Knowledge is power, and when it comes to your heart, knowledge can save your life. So, my friends, prevention really is better than cure. Every bite of food, every walk, every deep breath of calm, every cigarette you don't smoke, every checkup you schedule, let these small, daily choices add up. They create a heart that is resilient, strong, and less likely to betray you when you least expect it. Let me leave you with this question: 10 years from now, what kind of life do you want to live? Do you want to be active, walking with your grandchildren, traveling, enjoying independence? Or do you want to be limited, tethered to medications and hospitals? The choices you make today decide that future. Remember, your heart has carried you faithfully for decades. It has beaten millions of times without asking anything in return. Isn't it worth caring for, the way it has cared for you? Prevention isn't about restriction, it's about gratitude. It's about giving your heart the chance to keep beating strong for many years to come. So let's not just prepare for emergencies. Let's build lives where emergencies are less likely to happen at all. Eat well, move daily, breathe deeply, quit what harms you, and check in with your doctor. Your future self will thank you. If there's one lesson I've learned in my years of caring for older adults, it's this: the mind is just as important as the body when it comes to survival. We can talk about medical tricks, medications, calling 911, all of that is crucial. But there's another factor, one we don't often think about: your awareness and your state of mind. Because here's the truth: in the middle of a heart attack, panic can kill you faster than the heart attack itself. Let me explain. When panic takes over, your breathing becomes shallow, your thoughts scatter, you freeze or make poor choices. You waste the precious seconds you could have spent calling for help or performing cough CPR. Panic is the enemy. Calmness is the ally. And calmness doesn't come from luck, it comes from awareness and preparation. I want you to imagine this scenario. You're sitting at home alone, and suddenly you feel that crushing pain in your chest. If you've never thought about what a heart attack feels like, you might dismiss it. If you've never heard of cough CPR, you might do nothing. If you've never considered how to prepare, you might waste those first vital moments in confusion. But now picture this instead. You've watched this video. You know the signs: just pressure, pain spreading, shortness of breath, dizziness, cold sweats, nausea. You know about cough CPR, how to breathe deeply and cough forcefully to keep yourself conscious. You know that the first step is to call 911, take your medication if prescribed, sit down, unlock your door. You've already rehearsed it in your mind. So when it happens, instead of panic, you move into action. You act with clarity. You act with calm. That difference, panic versus calm, could very well save your life. I think of one of my patients, a retired firefighter named John. He told me, "Liam, in an emergency, we never rose to the level of our hopes, fell to the level of our training." What he meant was this: when the pressure is on, you don't magically become braver or smarter. You do what you've practiced. That's why firefighters drill. That's why soldiers train. And it's why, when it comes to your heart, mental rehearsal matters. Have you ever thought through, step by step, what you would do if a heart attack struck while you were alone? If you haven't, let's do it together right now. Close your eyes and imagine. The chest pain begins. You say to yourself, "This could be it." Instead of panicking, you take a deep breath, cough forcefully, grab your phone, dial 911. You sit down, unlock the door, keep coughing, keep breathing, wait for help. That mental picture, just imagining it, plants a seed. And if the real moment comes, your brain will recognize it. You'll be ready. Preparation isn't just about drills, though. It's also about mindset. Many of us, especially after 50, like to believe, it won't happen to me. We push aside thoughts of mortality because they're uncomfortable. But avoiding the thought doesn't protect you, it makes us vulnerable. Facing the possibility, acknowledging it, and preparing for it is what gives us power. I had a patient, Margaret, who once told me, "Liam, I used to be terrified of the idea of having a heart attack. Just the thought of it made me anxious. But after I learned what to look for and what to do, I stopped being afraid. Now I feel ready." That's the irony. Preparation doesn't increase fear, it decreases it. Knowledge doesn't weigh you down, it frees you. And awareness isn't just about your body, it's about your environment. Do you keep your phone within reach? Do you know where your medication is? Have you told your loved ones about cough CPR so they're aware too? These little acts of readiness transform panic into peace. Think of it like keeping a fire extinguisher in your kitchen. You don't buy one because you're sure your stove will catch fire. You buy one so that if it ever does, you won't stand frozen, powerless. You'll act. The same principle applies here. Awareness and preparation don't mean you're inviting disaster. They mean you're ready, and readiness is peace of mind. Let me ask you something. If you woke up tonight with chest pain, would you know what to do? Would you stay calm, or would fear take over? Would you remember this video, remember to breathe, cough, call, and prepare? I hope the answer is yes. But if not, let's make it yes together. Because the choice isn't made in the moment of crisis. The choice is made now, while you're calm, while you're watching this. I want you to write it down, even if just in your memory. Know the signs, know the trick, prepare your mind. That's your mantra. Know the signs, didn't dismiss chest pain, don't ignore dizziness, don't brush off cold sweats. Know the trick, deep breath, strong cough, repeat. Prepare your mind, visualize the steps, rehearse them, keep calm. Because here's the beautiful truth. Calmness itself can save your life. Calmness gives you clarity. Calmness lets you dial the phone instead of fumbling. Calmness helps you breathe deeply instead of gasping shallowly. Calmness steadies your hand so you can unlock the door. Calmness keeps the oxygen flowing not just to your heart, but to your brain. I've seen patients who survived heart attacks not because their bodies were stronger, but because their minds were steadier. They refused to panic. They leaned on what they knew, and what they knew guided them through. So as we close this part, let me leave you with a thought. Awareness is power, and preparation is freedom. You don't need to fear a heart attack. You need to respect it. You need to be ready. And readiness, awareness plus preparation is what transforms fear into confidence. Remember, panic steals seconds. Calmness saves them. And sometimes, those seconds are all you need. As we come to the end of this journey together, I want to step back and look at the bigger picture. We've talked about the terrifying reality of heart attacks, the simple but powerful idea of cough CPR, the importance of calling 911, taking your medication, sitting down, unlocking your door. We've walked through prevention, awareness, and preparation. But here's the truth I want to leave you with. The greatest way to protect your life isn't found in those desperate 10 seconds, it's found in the everyday choices you make long before the crisis ever comes. Yes, the cough technique may give you a lifeline when you're alone. Yes, it could buy you 30 more seconds, maybe even a minute, to call for help. But the real victory comes when you live in such a way that your heart is less likely to betray you in the first place. I've worked with thousands of patients over the past 3 decades. And what I've seen is this: the ones who live longest, healthiest, most fulfilling lives are not the ones who learned tricks for emergencies. They are the ones who took daily care of their hearts. They ate well. They moved their bodies. They managed their stress. They got their checkups. They didn't take tomorrow for granted, they invested in it. And that's what I want for you. Not just survival in the moment of crisis, but strength and freedom in your everyday life. Think about it. Do you want to live every day in fear of what if? Or do you want to live in confidence, knowing you're doing everything you can to protect your heart? Prevention is not just about avoiding death, it's about embracing life. It's about being able to walk with your grandchildren, take that trip you've dreamed of, or simply enjoy waking up in the morning without pain weighing you down. But beyond your own health, there's something else I hope you take from this. It's the importance of sharing this knowledge. Because heart disease isn't just personal, it's universal. Chances are, someone you love is at risk. A brother, a sister, a spouse, a neighbor, a friend from church. And here's the beautiful truth. Sometimes all it takes is one conversation, one reminder, one piece of shared wisdom to save a life. I'll never forget a story from one of my patients, Emily. She was 72, and she told me, "Liam, I shared what you taught me with my sister." A few weeks later, my sister had chest pain. Because she remembered our conversation, she didn't wait, called 911 right away. The doctors told her that quick call saved her life. Think about that. A simple act of sharing knowledge became the thread that kept a family whole. And that's why I'm asking you now, don't keep this to yourself. If this video has given you insight, if it has prepared you, pass it on. Send it to your children, your friends, your community. Because you never know when a single reminder might be the reason someone gets to see another sunrise. I know it can feel overwhelming to think about heart disease. It can stir up fear, even denial. But I want to leave you not with fear, but with hope. Because you are not powerless. You are not at the mercy of chance. You have tools. You have knowledge. You have the ability to prepare, to act, to live differently today so that tomorrow is stronger. Let me ask you, what if you could be the reason someone survives? What if your decision to share this video, to talk about these signs, to remind a loved one to get checked would, if that small act changed the course of their life? Isn't that worth doing? And for yourself, let me ask this, what do you want the rest of your years to look like? You've made it this far, through all the ups and downs life has thrown at you. Don't you want your heart to carry you with strength and freedom for as long as possible? That's what living proactively is all about. Not waiting for a disaster to strike, but building a life of resilience, gratitude, and health every single day. So here's my final encouragement to you. Take this knowledge seriously. Remember the cough trick. It could save your life if you're ever alone. But don't stop there. Eat for your heart. Move for your heart. Breathe for your heart. See your doctor. Listen to your body. Manage your stress. These daily acts are the true miracle, the real safeguard against tragedy. And please share this with the people you love. A conversation, a reminder, a video like this, these can ripple out in ways we may never fully see. Sometimes, the quietest words carry the greatest power. So let's live not in fear, but in preparation. Let's live not reactively, but proactively. Let's honor the incredible gift of our beating hearts by caring for them with intention and gratitude. Because your life matters, your story matters, and your heart, faithful, tireless, beating thousands of times a day, deserves every bit of care you can give it. Thank you for spending this time with me. And if you found this message meaningful, do me one favor, share it. Share it with your loved ones, your friends, your community. Because sometimes one reminder, one shared moment of awareness is all it takes to save a life. Stay strong, stay prepared, stay alive.